manipulate these things is because for some reason it benefits you to manipulate them, and that's what the system is. That's what the government is. That's what all of these things that are happening here over the last few weeks are derived from the mismanagement of government, because government and the people who are in government benefit from trying to manage the thing. Whether it's managed properly or mismanaged doesn't make any difference whatsoever to the system, as long as it gets to be the manager.
We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
All right, let's get this thing underway, because if we don't do it now, we just may never do it. Welcome to Toward Anarchy. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Michael Storm, and it's always great to be here every week with you on the Republic Broadcasting Network, worldwide, baby. And just to chat with you, have a few laughs, a little conversation about some of the things that are going on in the world, and trying to find our own place in it, right? That's kind of what this exercise is about. Certainly is for me, in terms of why would you do this at all? Why would you even make the effort to comment, to put together the work, to build a website, to make sure that you're out there on the social media and all of those places? Speaking of that, you can find me on Facebook and X and Instagram and just about everywhere else on the internet at Toward Anarchy. And wherever you find me, take just a quick second, do it right now, do it before you forget. Click that like button. Just click that like button. If you've listened to the show and then you don't like it, then you can take the like back. But click it now so you don't forget, because you get lost. You get into the show, you get to listening, you forget, you're doing your thing around the house or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you've forgotten the show's over and it's on to the next thing, and you've missed the opportunity to let me know that you're out there, and I do absolutely appreciate it. So just take one quick second to hit that like button, and as always, you can follow along at towardanarchy.com. That's where I do all of my best work. Well, it's where I do some work, as little as possible, but enough to make sure that it's done, right? That you're not going, what was that supposed to be, when you go there and you click on something and it doesn't work. And not that doesn't happen. It is technology. And I know how it can be with the technology. I know how frustrating it can be, because I can manipulate the technology very well, as good as anybody, and even on the level of being able to alter how the technology works physically and through its software and all these things, and I still get frustrated with it and want to throw my computer out a window about 2-3 times a day at least. Now, it may not be quite that bad, but it just seems like every once in a while it's just one right after another, one annoying little thing that the computer won't do or is doing, and then you can't get it to stop. I know my wife just randomly, was it yesterday? I guess it was just yesterday. And she spent 2.5-3 hours just sitting there at work twiddling her thumbs because her system was messed up, and they have a new tech guy, and I don't know that he's the greatest tech guy in the world. I couldn't even tell you, because you have no frame of reference for it at all. But just let me tell you, it's a comedy of errors, and it kind of always is with IT people. It's been something as an IT person myself, a tech savvy person who's literally worked IT for large corporations, 30 plus units that I'm managing. And it's always been funny to me to see some of the people that get into it, and some of the like big people. And by big people, I mean big. I'm talking about like oversized people that work on computers and are hired as IT people that can't get down on their knees, can't get down on the ground, actually have to have someone else do most of the physical work for them because they can't get to the computers, because they can't lower themselves to the ground, and if they do, can they get themselves back up without a crane? I'm not even being facetious about it. That's a silly thing. It's just literally something I've witnessed with my own eyes many times throughout my life, and just IT people, and just the whole way companies manage their technology. Having watched, little companies, just two people, little companies try to exercise what tools they can through the internet, to large corporations that have been in business for many years and are still in business today, and building their websites and setting up their digital presence, and just seeing the differences in the way some of them are managed, and the similarities, more importantly, I guess, if I'm talking about the situation that I just described, those similarities being how they just constantly will drop the ball on the important things and make it all make it as complicated as they possibly can to just simply for their employees to get their job done, and then complain that the employees can't get their job done. It's hilarious, really. So I mentioned it already, towardanarchy.com. Go there and look for episode 2527. You will see that's where I am today and what I am talking about today, and all the links and whatever we happen to get into. We'll see exactly where it goes. I don't really know. It's been a wild couple of weeks. Really, the last month and a half have just been insane with everything that is going on. It's been tough. Just now starting to catch up with all the short-term changes, literally just within the last sort of 48 hours, with all of the short-term changes, and now the long-term changes are what is in question, and those haven't even begun yet at this point. And not to be cryptic or anything about it, I guess I haven't talked about any of it that's going on. Obviously some of it I do, because some of it is just the sort of day-to-day management. The thing that I did with changing the store, changing the comic book shop's name, and really just trying to give us a sharper direction as we head into the end of the year and into the next year, with all these changes, things that have gone over the last few years, and just my now getting involved on a daily basis again in the store, and trying to make constant changes and trying to grow the thing, and it's paying off. It's working out really well, but it's been a lot of work, and we only just changed the name of the shop here at the beginning of July, so it's only just been a month and a half. That was officially July 1 was officially the new name change, and everything about that, everything that comes along with it. We had to sort of reset everything in the store in terms of the technology and the tools that we use for managing the accounts and things. Everything had to be changed. All of our distributor information, all that, it all had. Just because of the name change, that's it, and it's all because of government paperwork, and it's all the things that make it harder for just the average person to just do business, to have their own business. You have to jump through all of these hoops, literally having to go downtown to one of the state offices there and file paperwork and make changes and make sure that you're being taxed at the right place. Make sure they know that you're conducting business so they can get their share, and it's all. It's all just a part of the game, but it's all proof that there's no reason that I should have to go jump through a bunch of hoops to let my distributors know that I changed the name of my business. What do they care? Seriously, what do they care? As long as they're still dealing with me and I'm saying, hey, it's Mike over here, and we were called this the other day, and now we're called this. That's all. We just have changed our name because it tells about our direction. It's a better descriptor of our direction and what we do, and that's why we did it. And it's just a better name, and it's just a cooler name, and we were lucky to be able to get a hold of it. And all of these things that we did, that we shouldn't have to tell anybody any of those things. We shouldn't have to file paperwork necessarily. You want to update it so that things aren't getting delivered to the wrong place or to the wrong people, but that's not really a concern when what we're talking about here is just a name change of the business. That's it. Nothing else fundamentally changed in the business, and nothing that's anybody's business, really, truly. And so it's all just about the management, the control, the state getting its cut of anything that you do so that they can continue to be the lazy SOBs that they are and pretend to manage things as the roads fall apart, as our economy collapses around us. It's a bit of a silly joke, really, of course, for the old anarchist here to sit back and watch what's happened, because that's one of the things that's really occurred here just over the last few weeks. If you listen to me, you listen for years, you listen to me talk about the economy, you listen to me talk about money, and explain how it works, and explain why when you do certain things within the economy, it's going to affect our money and it's going to affect our economy negatively, and that generally speaking, that these things need not be done because it is a self-correcting system. And so the only reason you get in there and you manipulate these things is because for some reason it benefits you to manipulate them, and that's what the system is. That's what the government is. That's what all of these things that are happening here over the last few weeks are derived from the mismanagement of government, because government and the people who are in government benefit from trying to manage the thing. Whether it's managed properly or mismanaged doesn't make any difference whatsoever to the system, as long as it gets to be the manager. You understand that, right? And so with the economics, everything that has happened over here over the last few weeks is stuff that normally I would be talking about, but with my mother's health, that's what I started to get into just a minute ago, is that's one of the things that I haven't talked about, is it's my mother's health that has brought on some of these changes. It's not just the day-to-day and the two daughters going into college here starting in 2 days, and a boy that just started in high school here just this last week, and the business, all that's just the normal day-to-day stuff. But then you top it off with health issues, and then in an attempt to get to go to see my mother for a surgery that she just had here a few weeks ago. That's what started it all. And my car broke down. The main car that we have, our Buick, it broke down. The Regal, it's done, it's over, and I won't put any more money into it because I don't want to be upside down in it. We ended up ultimately, in the long and short of it is that we ended up buying a Lemon, and we wasted too much money and time with it, and so we're moving on. That's it. That's that. So these are the sorts of things, other things that were hanging out in the background over the last few weeks, and some interesting things happened over the last few weeks within the economy and within our system. And so I didn't get a chance to comment on them. And they're, in terms of talking about economics, they're one of my sort of favorite things. They're one of my bread and butter sorts of approaches to what I do here in talking about the simplicity of understanding economics, and where you can just point to some of the things that government does and how it really screws things up. And one of those areas has been that those employment numbers, I've talked about them for years and years, and it's over the last 2 years It's really become a thing that everyone else has noticed, because this was something that, as I talked about it over previous years, it was every once in a while, certainly within libertarian and Austrian circles, you would see somebody talk about these things, but elsewhere you wouldn't see them mentioning the manipulations in certain numbers, particularly the employment numbers. For years and years, it has been the case that we would see employment numbers, they would be reported on, and that those numbers would change, and they would 99% of the time, that's a little bit facetious, but only just a little bit. Most of the time, the numbers would be revised downward, and twice throughout the year they would get another review. They get a revision, initial revision, and then they get a final revision at the end of the year, or sometime to wrap up the year. And so these numbers, and they're almost always adjusted for the negative. That's what I'm getting at, is that when they tell you that 100,000 jobs were created, but what actually happened was only 10,000 jobs were created, or 10,000 jobs were lost. I mean, they missed it by hundreds of thousands, millions at a time in cases, depending on the length of time and what period they're reporting over. And it's funny to see what has happened here over the last few weeks, because those numbers, those jobs numbers, came out again, and they were bad, and they're blaming it on the people that collected the data and not the presentation of the data, because it's the presentation of the data that gives you the false sense of what is actually happening within the economy and within the jobs numbers. And you have to know that this is true across the board about all the numbers that government reports to you. It is a very limited, very weak effort, and it only is done with enough effort to serve their needs. Once again, it benefits them to be able to alter these things and to make these claims about the way the economy is. And so what you get is manipulated data and manipulated information, and it's put out there to the public and through the media to the public to get them behind the political system, to get them behind things. Oh, well, job numbers are up. They actually created more job numbers than the government expected. Ooh, that's special. That means that things are going better. Except that it was always a lie, and that so what we get is, when you start looking at the numbers, you see what I've been talking about for years. One, they switch those numbers, and two, that these spikes exist within a downward trend. So all of these spikes, even if they're positive spikes, positive growth, they all exist within a downward trend. We're on the downward side of this economic system and this manipulation of this system. And so the question has been, all of this time, how long is it going to take? What is it going to take to break it, or to fix it, or to answer any of these questions, ask all of these questions to try to find an answer to them? And there is no real answer. In fixing them, there's an answer, and that's to get government out of the money business. It's as simple as that. And then the economy will fix itself. Obviously, certain sectors, certain places, and people within it are going to struggle more than others, but that's how life works. That's reality. And so the economy is going to it's going to affect people how it affects them, whether government gets involved or not. And the only thing that government getting involved can do is make it worse, or prolong the results of the natural problems within the it's hard to point to the economy and point to any natural problems at this point, because it's all so manipulated. And that's something that myself and many others have talked about for years. And I've told you, I've used the word stagflation over and over again, and it's a special economic word. It's stagnant growth and inflationary policy and inflated money. And so what we have, the inflated money supply that brings down the value of the money. And so you get a confluence, right? Yeah, of two things that aren't good, and they build on each other, and it's funny because we exist in a very special time right now where someone like myself has been telling you that with the manipulations, it's impossible to say when we're really going to see certain events, whether they're economic depressions or whether it's the stagflation or whether it's inflation or whatever they are, because it's a very fluid thing and they're constantly manipulating it and manipulating the appearance to make it look like things are better than they are, to keep you excited about the spike on the downward trend instead of the fact that it's a downward trend overall, which is the bigger problem. And it's all just this little bit of a song and dance. And there was this great, I saw it today, and I'll have to remember, we'll have to see if I actually shared the link or not, because there was, I just loved it. It was so Orwellian. I don't use that term a lot, or flippantly, or just throwing it out there. People use that term a lot, that phrase Orwellian a lot, but I don't think they know what it means. Now I'll tell you exactly what it means. It's perfect for this situation, because it's trying to fool you into a fundamental shift in your understanding of a thing, instead of just accepting that it's this thing and that it's happening, and that you need to do something about it relative to your situation within the economy. And so we are on the way to stagflation, and it is a massive, terrible economic process that happens over time and can be drug out. And so we're as close to it as we've ever been at this point in history. And there's they're having to recognize this fact, and people are starting to talk about it. And so there's a new phrase that exists now that just popped up, or at least it's the first time that I've seen it, and I've been in and around the word stagflation for a couple of days now at least. And the new phrase, the distraction, it's not that bad, just don't worry about it, we've got it under control, it's just a scary thing that you don't need to worry about. We are in a state of stagflation-Lite. Yes, that's right, like light beer. Yes, it's still beer. It's just lighter. It's still stagflation. It's just lighter, and that's that's Orwellian. I mean, that's the epitome of Orwellian. There are a number of different things that relate to that claim that something is Orwellian, but it ultimately is about the misdirection of thought and about changing your thought processes and the language that people use, and how you think about that language relative to a political or social system and the situations that come up within it, wars, what have you, economic problems, whatever they are. And so that's what that Orwellian, that's just one facet of an Orwellian type of thing that you see so often. It's not just the erasing of history and the changing of history, it's that altering of the language. It's all very Orwellian. Go to towardanarchy.com. Real quick, let me throw this out there. Let me get you to support the network. Support Republic Broadcasting. Go to republicbroadcasting.org. Over on the left-hand side, there's this orangish, yellowish kind of button over there that says Donate. You click on that. Just a couple of clicks away after that. I mean, really, just a couple of clicks. You select an amount. You select a time period. Because it can be a regular donation, or it can just be a one-time donation, and a couple of clicks after that, you're done. That's it. It's over. You've handled it. Otherwise, give us a call, 800-724-2719, extension 3. Somebody will help you out. You can also mail a check to RBN if you're already set. If you're one of those listeners across the network who's been supporting the network for years, you're amazing. The work that you have done, every dollar dollar that you've ever sent to Republic Broadcasting has gone to argue the narrative. It may not be the part of the narrative that you necessarily support the most or believe the most or understand the most, but we're having the conversation, and it's because of you. You get to hear those conversations. You get to make those decisions for yourself. Mail that check to RBN 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. And of course, you can visit shoprbn.com for the win-win. You support the advertisers. They continue to advertise across the network. We continue to get to bring you amazing programs like Your Health in Mind. That's the show that I'm doing live across the network every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Dr. Dean Lloyd and I are live, and we take your calls. The show is called Your Health in Mind. And we're just trying to give you the tools, the language, the courage, some of those things that you can, it's going to build you up and give you the strength to move forward with your health questions and health concerns in your life for yourself or for your loved ones. And to be able to go to the people who provide us those health care and be able to speak to them and to feel strong in your understanding about what your situation is, and that it's about you, and that you need to know, and that you need to be in charge, and that you're not going to let these medical bullies and this establishment and the insurance and all these things push you around in it, that you have some of those tools and you have a little bit better understanding that you can just arm yourself with. It truly is. It's building up an armor to protect yourself from a system that doesn't really care about you as an individual. That's the problem. With all of this stuff, right? The healthcare system, our government system, it doesn't care about you as an individual. It cares about the collective, and it cares about itself, and it cares about you only in terms of making sure that you are doing what it wants you to do, that you are in line, and that you are making the right choices. And of course, the right choices are the choices that they think you should be making about your life, and they set a very limited set of guidelines and rules before you. And when I say limited, I mean limiting to you. They limit you in the ways that you can express yourself and the way you can live your life, and it's all just so they can literally collect a paycheck. That's what it's all about. No, can we just stop fooling ourselves that government is about anything other than the redistribution of wealth from the larger population to the controlling population, and that it doesn't matter who the controlling population is as long as the system is in control. And it's one of the things that leaves me at the place that I am right now, because it's really tough to care. It really truly is. It's really tough to care when it's your fault. It's just your fault. All you voters, all of these people who participate in the system, even the libertarians, it's all your fault. You're the ones that let this happen. I liken it to this something that's said all the time about the police state, about how they ushered in a police state over the last 25 years, 24 years, certainly since 9/11, right? How they've ushered in a police state, and my argument is that they didn't usher in jack squat. Is that you welcomed it. You let them walk it right down the street. You said, hey, you guys, you promised me security and protection, and I'll be safe. Absolutely, go ahead, put weapons of war on my street, empower police to kill people indiscriminately, 14-year-old boys with toy guns that are not a danger to the cop, and if he just waits one more Split second, he sees that it's a fake gun and that he's in no danger. These cowards, it's nothing but cowards. Government is nothing but cowards. All the people that work for government are nothing but cowards, even if they don't know it, even if they think they're the strongest, most brave individuals ever. They're not. They're cowards. They're cowards. They're afraid to take responsibility for themselves. They don't want to have to take the chance at all in life. They would just as soon have somebody else worry about the safety and it's the same people. We live in a population, we live in a society here in America where we have been encouraged historically to defend ourselves, to be independent, to stick up for ourselves, to take what is rightfully ours, and to let other people have what is rightfully theirs. And one of the ways that we do that is by being armed. An armed society is a polite society. There's proof of it. There's proof of it across the board. This is definitely one that's up there today that we can talk about. This idea that we are a politer society when we're armed, of course, because that means that less people can take advantage of people because they're prepared to defend themselves. When criminals know that people are going to defend themselves, they're less likely to engage in criminal activity. And just the fact that most people don't carry a firearm for self-defense proves that people are cowards. They're cowards. They're not willing to defend themselves. They're not willing to take it upon themselves to provide for their own safety and their own protection, so much so that they leave themselves vulnerable to victimization for 9 to 13 minutes on the low side, 20 minutes on the high side, for somebody to come and help you in a situation. So, and the cowardliness comes out in just the not wanting to carry because, I don't know, it's a dangerous thing. If I have a firearm, I might have to use it. Well, yeah, that's the point. But more to the point is if you have a firearm, you probably don't have to use it, and you don't have to worry about not having it if you ever do have to use it. But there's another cowardice in there, and it comes from being punished by the state for defending yourself. That's one of the most egregious examples of what the state does to the individual and taking away the power of the individual, in particular their individual personal safety power. The idea that they themselves can and should be the first responder in their own lives when there's an emergency, whether it's in a healthcare situation or whether it's in a criminal situation where somebody tries to assault you or rob you or take what's yours or kill you, and that would be taking your life, and that's yours. They have disempowered the majority of the population and turned them into cowards who won't defend themselves for any number of reasons, and the worst of them being that they're afraid that if they defend themselves that they're going to be punished for it by the state. And there's no reason for them to not believe that. They should absolutely believe that and be weary of it, but they shouldn't let that stop them from defending themselves, and they shouldn't let them stop them from showing that they're prepared to defend themselves and openly carrying their firearm with them everywhere. It just makes my heart sing when I see just normal people walking throughout there. You know what? You know how happy I am when I see a black man walking around with a gun on his hip. I'm not talking about a gangster. I'm not talking about saggy pants, and that's how you know that he has a gun and you got to worry about him. No, I'm talking about a normal, average black man going about his day and his life, but he's carrying a firearm. He's prepared to defend himself, and you know why? You know why the black man would? Because maybe he's a little bit closer to the violence of the state and the violence of his own people in terms terms of, just looking at the numbers and looking at what happens in our society to black men and to other black men who are around black men who aren't prepared to defend themselves. It makes me happy. It makes me very happy. I'm glad to see it. It's empowering. I wish that everybody would carry. I wish that everybody was prepared to defend themselves, because then there are no more victims. There are no more victims. And so let's have a conversation about that just a little bit, because go to towardanarchy.com. Let's follow up this thread here. We had plenty of time to cover all these things today. Episode 2527 is the episode that you're looking for, and you will, when you get there, there's all the usual stuff, the important things. There's where to follow us, Facebook, Instagram, all those things, at Toward Anarchy. Those links are up there. And the newsletter, I'm still giving out copies of Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson. The Mises Institute gave them to me. I have, I think, 35 copies still left or something like that. I'll be giving them away for years at this rate. I'm just giving them out once a month to people who sign up on the email list. I just take somebody randomly out, and it's great. The email list has grown so much this year. It's so encouraging. It's really great, and it's thanks to you guys. It's thanks to you guys remembering to click that like button and to click those shares, and you're reading it's obvious that you want the information. You want to be in contact. You want me to be in contact with you. That's what's cool about the email list. It's just such a neat thing that it exists in its own space. It's a person voluntarily taking their private contact information and saying, here's my contact information. I think what you have to say is important. I wouldn't mind you occasionally sending me something to let me know that you're still out there. And so it's just really great to watch it grow. 2527 at towardanarchy.com. That's the episode number. I will get into these comic books here in just a minute. I want to have a little bit of fun. We're going to look at 8 hidden gem comic books that are worth collecting, supposedly. And I'll explain all that when we get there in just a minute. But I want to run through the things that are in the audit real quick, because there's a bunch of things that I've already talked about are kind of in there, and you can definitely follow up on them. And I don't know exactly where we'll go with the rest of them, because I'm just kind of I'm with everything that is going on in my own life. It always puts this stuff in perspective, of these things about just what the rest of the system and these people are going through. It puts it into perspective, and the perspective is I couldn't care less, generally speaking, about most of it, and so that can, especially when you step away from it for a minute and you got other things to do, it make it a little bit harder to sort of work your way back into your normal routine and do the things that you would normally have done in any situation before you decided that you didn't like that situation anymore, right? That's the whole point. So there's at towardanarchy.com, episode 2527, there's all these links, and there's a bunch of different things in there. Where was the one specifically that... okay, yeah, so I was talking about the gun thing. So the anti-gun crowd is out there as always, and they always have something to say anytime one of these incidents occurs, whatever it happens to be. And this is one of these things that's happened over the last couple of weeks here that I haven't had a chance to address, that's right up my alley. So I'm glad to be able to get in here and throw my 2 cents in on this one, because I think it's important. I think it's obvious. It's obvious to me, and so then when it's obvious to me, it may or may not be obvious to other people, and sometimes you just have to spell it out for them, and that's okay if you're one of those people that needs it spelled out for you. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. You just have to be ready to listen, and you have to be at least prepared enough to understand that there might be a different story, a different narrative to be told there, regard whatever it is, whatever it's regarding, whether it's guns or the economy or politics or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. So the anti-gun crowd is out there, and this shooting happened at Fort Stewart, the Army base. And I think a sergeant killed 5 guys or shot 5 guys. something along that line. And and of course, as soon as something like that happens, the gun control crowd jumps out, and they said, it was funny because they say, well, that the Army has a gun control problem, and it's hilarious to me because it's not that I see it contrary, it's that I see literally the other side of it that's actually the bigger, more important side of that claim. So the claim is that a whole bunch of people that have been taught to kill have all the weapons in the world, and every once in a while something like this happens and they have a gun control problem. That seems backwards to me. I think that clearly, when you look at that it proves that you can purposely train and teach people to kill and give them all those weapons in the world right at their disposal, and that something like this still only rarely happens. Rarely happens. So isn't it funny how an agenda will twist something? And realize, yes, I have an agenda. When I talk about the Second Amendment, when I talk about the right of self-defense, I have an agenda, and that agenda is freeing people. It's not an agenda that enriches me in any other way other than I am helping to empower other people and believe that they can be empowered by their ability to defend themselves. And that's where I leave it at. That's the benefit to me, is that they are empowered and they are prepared to defend themselves, and there are less overall victims. And that's great for any number of reasons when you're talking about a socialized space like America and the place that we live in today. And so this claim is just another bogus claim by a system of control, a system of liars, a people with an agenda, a people with an agenda that is an agenda that is nefarious in its undertaking and them exercising it, because the claim is that you're protecting yourself, that if we take guns off the street that you're being protected, but that's not true. It's never once been proven to be true, not at all. It's the Pandora's box, it's whatever you want to call it, it's the cat is out of the bag. Everybody has the ability to harm somebody else, and there are people out there that are happy to harm other people or desperate enough to harm other people, that you telling them that they can't harm other people doesn't keep them from harming other people. And so the tool that they use to harm other people doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many laws you pass. It doesn't matter how many people you punish. All that matters is that you've lied, and you've taken away the power of individuals and therefore the power of society as a whole to defend itself from any criminal. And of course, the biggest criminals are those organized criminals. And of course, the organized criminals don't want you to be armed. And they want to limit how you're armed because they're the biggest criminals. Because eventually somebody looks at it and says, you don't have a right to do this. You don't get to make up the rules. Even if the rules were made up 200 years ago, 250 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. In fact, if they were made that long ago, it might be time to look at the rules and maybe make a little bit adjustment and move into our current society and our current place in time, relative to reality instead of relative to history and the system, and making sure that the thing goes on. We're the thing. We, the people, all of us, we're the thing that needs to go on, not this goddamn monolith, not this stone, not this faceless, nameless, ridiculous thing that continues to weigh down on us as individuals every single day, disempowering us. It takes away our health, our wealth, it just, everything from us. It robs us, and it leaves us to this point that I was thinking about as I was coming up to the show, to record the show today. It's early on Saturday, and the show will air tonight across the network, and you may find it at some place later on. But when I was thinking about it this week, and just the last couple of days, really, what am I going to talk about? What will I do this week? And I'm just thinking about how liberty is being denied us and denied to future generations. And I just see this end of freedom right before us, and there's no stopping it because most of you welcome it, as I was saying before. You just welcome it in. You're scared, you're cowards, you won't stand up for yourself. You get pissed at me, you would be angry at me, you'd want to attack me and lash out at me for calling you a coward. But the people who actually harm you, the people who actually take advantage of you every single day, you wouldn't do a single thing to them, so you're a coward. That's what you are. Our freedom, our liberty, it's gone, and it's never coming back because most of you are happy to be slaves. Most of you are happy to be cowards. There is coming a time that being a part of the system will be mandatory. Not just a piece of the system or this part here or this. Being a part of the system, being allowed to even exist within the city limits, to have a license or a means to travel at all. You probably won't even own a car, but you still have to have permission to travel through, whether they're robot taxis or maybe a human-driven one. I don't know, whatever. But you won't be allowed to ride it. You won't be allowed to ride the transportation. You will be an enemy of the state. If you refuse to assimilate and join the greater collective, you'll be marked as a traitor and a terrorist, and you'll be forced out. You'll be locked out. You'll be denied access to banking. You'll be denied access to healthcare and jobs and transportation, like I was saying, information access. You won't be able to access the internet unless this is one of the, all of these things are happening right now. They're happening right now. They're going away. It's not going to stop because there is no stopping it because it's all being driven by the people who want to control. And you can look at, for proof of this, you can look at just the first link that I shared up there this week under the Anarchist Audit, and it's a thing that's happened across all these industries. It's happened across social media. It happened a couple of years back with PayPal when they made a statement, they made a claim in their terms that if you said anything openly, publicly on social media that they didn't like, that they could freeze your money. And this is happening over and over again, and this is why it's a top-down. This is why you know it's a top-down thing, because just like it's happened in movies and other places across the economy, the quality and the storytelling of video games has fallen to political and social agendas, and the current one is the anti-porn crusaders that they've come for online game distributors here just over the last week or so, last couple weeks. For instance, Steam is an online platform that provides video games, and they old video games, new video games, whatever, just across the board, independent games, big market games, whatever it is. And you go onto the platform, and some of the games are free, and some of the games are paid, and whatever. You buy one, you download it, you play the game. And there are not safe for work games. There are games that show nudity, and games of they're like storytelling type games, and you're a big stud, and you gotta woo the girls, and there it's storytelling, and it may not be stories you want to hear, but that's not the point. That's the point of free speech. But so the things that you don't like other people, it's okay that other people talk about them just because you don't like them. It doesn't mean that they can't be. And so you have these sort of not safe for work type games, and they're generally, this argument about it's for the kids, this is a problem, right? It's the argument of a tyrant. When they start screaming that it's for the children, that's the argument of a tyrant. And what you're hearing is, you will do things our way, and we will punish you if you don't, because we believe that we are protecting your children, except that they're not there, they're not stopping anything, they're not preventing anything. There are all sorts of ways around identity, and this is why I'm telling you that you'll be denied access to the internet. This is one of these platforms, the anti-porn crusaders, and I don't care if you're one of them. I really am not interested. I get it. I'm talking to a right-wing religious network mostly across Republic Broadcasting, and so there are some of you right now that have a problem with the idea of porn. Well, you know what? That's your problem, and the problem of porn for somebody else is their problem, and you guys need to figure this out, because you conservatives, you were the guys that were supposed to protect your republic. You were the guys that were supposed to prevent things like this from happening, where you disagree with somebody else, but it doesn't harm other people, and even if it does harm other people, it's not harming you because you've made the choice not to participate in this thing. It is not your problem. It sure as hell isn't within your purview to use your problem that you have with somebody else as an excuse, as a reason, as ammunition to go to the polls to vote for some piece of crap to force other people to do what you want them to do by proxy just because you don't like it. That's exactly what you were supposed to stand up against. You were supposed to keep the system from being able to do that. You were supposed to keep the system out of our bedroom, even if you didn't like the sex that other people were having, even if they were having it with machines and cartoon characters. It's none of your business. And it's the slippery slope. It's the example of everything that is wrong with you people on the political side. That's right, you people on the political side. And every negative connotation of the meaning of the word, the phrase, you people. You suck. That's what you people do. You need to stop with your agenda. You need to stop with your opinion, and you need to ultimately stop pushing it on other people, because this everything you don't like about this system, conservatives, let me remind you, everything that's happening right now under your precious little hair hat wearing orange man up there in office, everything that he's doing as a right-wing Republican, as a nutball Christian, a pretend Christian, let's remind you of that. All of these things that he is doing up there are all the things that the next megalomaniacal scumbag SOB is going to have the power to be able to do to somebody else. Don't you get that? Don't you get that that was why we were supposed to do things a certain way? Why we were supposed to have our republic if we could keep it? You were supposed to stop this from happening, and you didn't. You know why? Because you can't. Because you can't. Because every single little thing, every single little reason that you give to government to get more power for itself is more reason, more power, more excuses, things that are going to be used against you or the next person or the next group or the next political affiliation that isn't in favor. That's just the way it works. And now you get what we have here today. And if you don't like it, guess what? It's your own fault. It's your fault. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how bad you feel about it after the fact. It doesn't matter how good you feel about it when you're in the moment, right? It's so great. You showed up at the polls, and then you go home and you watch the returns, and the smoking ban passes, and the 21 and older to buy cigarettes passes. I don't know why smoking pops into my head all of a sudden. Maybe I need it. It's been a long time. No, I don't need one. It doesn't. You won, right? You're feeling it. We showed up at the polls and my team won. Yeah, woohoo! Go Team USA! Except that it's not Team USA. It's Team US whatever happens to be in charge, whoever's voting, whoever shows up at the polls most, it's anything but. Yeah, it's a hollow victory. There's no foresight given, there's no hindsight considered. Nobody's looking at it and going, you know what, the power we give to these fools today is the power that the next guy that we don't like will have to be able to use against us. And so what's happening is something that I talk about often, is this ratcheting up. There's a ratcheting up of the events, of the political system, of the ties that keep everybody together, or that drive us apart, the things that wedge us apart. It just continues to ratchet up. It continues to grow. There's no turning it back. You can't stop it, because it's about one-upmanship. It's about fixing what the last guys did. The last guys were here. They ran roughshod through the entirety of the economy, through our political system, through our social system, and every single aspect of our society, and now we have to fix it. And we have to fix it by being dictators. And you've given us the mandate to do it, right? You're the one that jumped in and you said, hey, you know what? Here's my vote. Here's my power. You have my permission to go out there and do what's required to make people see things my way, to make people see things our way. This is the way it should be done. Go out there and do it. That's what you did. It feels great, right? Because you won. But what about that question the next time the next guy wins? Or how do you keep the next guy out? These are the questions that history has already answered. It's answered them repeatedly. You see exactly what happens in history when you have a polarized political system, a charismatic leader, weaponized police forces, and weaponized ideologies, and you've turned the system against the enemies, and the enemy is just the other people. It's just everybody else. The people who just don't see things the same way you do. They don't pose any true threat. It's all existential. It's all on some imagined level that it has anything anyone else has anything to do with you, when it's not in the political arena, when it's not been politicized, when it's not been weaponized, when it hasn't been turned into something that other people get to vote on to decide whether or not you get to participate, whether it's something that you get to do, you get to have, or you get to be. Where's the disconnect? Can somebody answer that question? Where is the disconnect? And I don't think you can answer that question, because I already answered it. I just spent the last hour talking about it, in fact. It's that you're cowards. It's that you're cowards. You won't stand up to the system. You won't stand up for yourselves. You won't defend yourselves. You won't make the simple statement that this is reality, that this is life, that other men who imagine themselves as being powerful have any right to tell anyone else what to do. That it's just other people, that the rules that you have to follow, the things that you're told that you must do or that you can't do, these things, they're all derived from somebody else's opinion of the way things should be. They're not factual. They don't have any, there's no it's not like God's going to come down here and thank everybody for voting a certain way. You're not going to fix society. You're not going to make any major changes. You're not going to do anything but just sit there and be the cowards that you are. You're going to say, well, somebody else is going to be responsible for it. I have to worry about myself, except that I have to take care of myself, except that you're not. You're not taking care of yourself. You're going out of your way to make it a point to suggest that other people should have to take care of you. You vote for socialist legislation and redistribution of wealth just because it's under a certain party. it's being done under a certain party. The economic policies that this current president, that Donald Trump is pushing off on the American people are the same economic policies that you would decry if they were being done by a leftist. If the person in office was a socialist, if they were a Democrat, if they were a liberal, whatever you want to call them, whatever pejorative you think you've come up with that's so much better than the pejorative that is you as a Republican or whatever you are. Unless and until you get past that, nothing is going to change. We have to go to a break. We'll be right back.
Everyone does it. Now you can do it too. Shut the fuck up. Shut your mouth. Shut up. Shut the hole in your face. Like that. You can do it. Shut up. And shut the fuck up.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't want you to protest, I don't want you to riot, I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being, my life has value.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
Here we go, off into hour number 2, towardanarchy.com to follow along as always, and wherever you are finding the show, wherever you are hearing my voice from, whatever platform it is on, please just take a quick moment to click that like button and let me know that you're out there. Let me know that you care. Show that love. Let's see. I spent the last hour calling you cowardly, hypocritical, short-sighted, and a bunch of other things. Well, let's see if we can top it going into this hour. TowardAnarchy.com, as I say, and it's episode 2527, and there's a bunch of stuff up there that we could still potentially end up getting to. There's a wonderful little meme I could share with you, but I can't really share it across the network. It's Smokey, and he says, remember, only you. Well, it's not preventing forest fires, but make yourself happy and make us all happy while you do it too. It's if you can't see it, it won't make as much sense, and it involves a dirty word. Okay, all right, there I said it. It was jeez. If they can get you asking the wrong questions, they don't have to worry about the answers that you come up with, right? Thomas Pynchon said that, the author Thomas Pynchon, and my understanding is from his wife that is one of Butler Schaefer's favorite quotes. And Butler Schaefer, one of those people that would have been great to know, would have been great to be able to get to know in my lifetime, but didn't get a chance to, unfortunately. And he's just one of those names that pops up throughout all throughout libertarian circles and anarchist circles, and it's just the wonderful quotes and things that he's written, and the topics and discussions and things that he's been involved in over the years, just amazing. Okay, so towardanarchy.com. And there are any number, again, like I said, any number of links up there. But I wanted to do this thing with these comic books. It's the name of the article is 8 Hidden Gem Comics That Are Worth Collecting, and that's an interesting claim to me because it's not a place where you would necessarily see that sort of that sort of connection made. I'm going to have to go here and dig up the link. That's why I'm stumbling around a little bit. It was supposed to be there, but apparently I have an error, and I will have to fix that. It'll be fixed before you know it. You'll never see it. It'll be long gone by the time you get there. But let's see if I can actually find what the link was, because it was a great link. It's in here somewhere. It's one that I had saved from a week or so ago, and they're just talking about these eight comic books that supposedly are special and are worth your time. Something that you can possibly collect, maybe look, maybe make money on sometime in the future. And so I thought it would be fun if we just looked at them together, because I have never looked at them. 8 hidden gem comics that are worth collecting, and the author is Francisco Hernandez, from a site called Avocado, which I don't know, and of course we're just seeing it through MSN here, because aggregate gateway, just a place to bring all the information to me. And again, when you go through MSN.com or something like that and you get an article from them, it lessens the odds, it lowers the odds, decreases the odds that you're going to find a bad link, something that end up behind a paywall, which there are ways around that too. But if you don't have to worry about ending up behind a paywall, as it's not as likely. So all right, so I thought it would be fun, just something fun to do amongst all this name calling and mudslinging that I'm doing today. It would be fun to just take a look at what these are and see if there's any validity to what they're talking about, because it's obvious if you can get your hands on an Action Comics #1, that's a comic book worth collecting. But I'm assuming that these are more less likely, less understood, less known titles that may already be worth something, or may possibly be worth something in the future, depending on planned projects, TV shows, movies, things like that. So we're going to find out together. I thought it would be fun to find out together to see if they know what they're talking about, because I don't talk about comic books in terms of investing, because it's really kind of a no-brainer when it comes to investing in collectibles. It's about the money you have and can put out there, and it's about what you can get back from that money. I know it's just that way with investing in anything, but when it comes to collectibles, because there's not necessarily a hard, fast marketplace, and it always depends on what the competition is, your location. There's just so many other factors that are involved, and not to mention that you don't have to have collectibles. They're not something we have to have in our lives, so they're something that you can pass on when it comes up. So let's see, what do we got here? Comic book collecting has long been a passion for many fans. Iconic titles often get all the attention. This is what I was hoping this would be. There are hidden gems worth discovering. These comics may not be well known, but they offer incredible value for collectors. If you're looking for diversity in your collection, consider keeping an eye out for these underrated treasures. Cool. That's exactly what I was hoping this was. I was hoping it wasn't going to be, of course, you need to get a Detective Comics number 27. Of course that's going to be good. Oh, the Max. What a great way to start off. 1903 to 1998. There's also a television series, a cartoon series. Fantastic. Sam Keith, that's the man. And Joseph Mesner Loebs, right? Loebs, something like that. The Max is a lesser-known gem from Image Comics, a game to cult following after its release. A surreal, gritty comic focuses on the story of a homeless man named Max, who inhabits both the real world and a bizarre dreamlike dimension. Created by Sam Keith, the artwork and storytelling are distinctive. That's Sam Keith. Sam Keith's work is noticeable. It's just like anybody who spent time understanding Matisse paintings or something like that. You know a Matisse, you know a real Matisse when you see one. I know a Sam Keith when I see one, and that's true across the board. That's great. That's a great one to start off with. It's Max, the cartoon, the comic book series. Both were one of my favorites of both of those things over the years. Absolutely. That's really cool. All right, so let's see what's next. Bone is classic. Epic fantasy comic series by Jeff Smith that began as an independent publication before gaining widespread acclaim. Series follows the adventures of three Bone cousins who find themselves caught in the magical world full of danger and mystery. Bone stands out for its combination of whimsical art and deep, intricate storytelling. It seamlessly blends humor, fantasy, and heartfelt drama, making it a multi-layered read for all ages and accessible. Easy to get into, worth the read once you get there. Bone, just fantastic. These are so great. Madman Comics and Madman himself, and that's Mike Allred. Mike Allred is another one, just like Sam Keith, that if you know your creators, you know every time you see an Allred cover or an Allred piece of art. Maybe not the storytelling. That might be a little bit more intricate, a little bit harder to read. But you see that art, you know that right there. It's right there in front of your face, and there's no question. This is Mike Allred, and I love watching out for his stuff. And it's because he does lots of covers, and he works for everybody. And so he just pops up here and there, and I will almost always grab me an Allred cover. Yeah, that's great. Madman. I have that first appearance of Madman. Saga of Swamp Thing. Now that's just classic Alan Moore storytelling. 2-year run, really like Alan Moore and a lot of people did during that time period with some of these classic characters, the Batman being one of them, of course, Superman being one, John Byrne, all of these characters had a rebirth in and around this period, and this was definitely the rebirth of the Swamp Thing, which had never really gone away. There was the movie, which was really fantastic, and just a cult following, as a lot of these things tend to do. Saga of the Swamp Thing revitalized the character and helped define the supernatural comic genre in the 80s. It's true, it really did, because that's the kind of stuff that predates superhero stories, is these types of stories from the supernatural and the sort of witchcraft and ghosts and things like that. And so while that had faded over the years as the popularity of Superman and superheroes and the like had really increased, and certainly so with cartoons that had come through the 70s and into the early 80s, and it was nice to see this. It was just a complete switch, and it was taken a bit more seriously. A lot of comic books before the 80s are considered, they whether they are or not, people looked at them as childish, look at them as being potentially campy. It didn't help that the Batman television series did what it did. For what it's worth, I'm not decrying it. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying that it gave a certain presentation. It made comic book superheroes appear a certain way, and that sort of held over. And it wasn't until some of these hardcore storytellers, the Frank Millers, the Alan Moores, with Saga of Swamp Thing, and you got your Dark Knight saga, and some of these other great stories that really retold these characters and brought whether they didn't already exist in that space or not at that time period, it certainly brought them to that time period. And how are you going to go wrong in sort of letting Alan Moore run wild with one of your characters, when you have the amazing, this is just so long ago already in this game. I wasn't even 10 years old when this was running, and it just made such a huge impact across the board on comic books, and changed. It was those kind of storytelling, that kind of storytelling from the Alan Moores and the Frank Millers, that made it so that comic books became the viable property that they are today in terms of money and the movies and things that have come along in the years since then. Really just fantastic. Let's see what's next here. What's next? Sandman. I'm not as familiar with Sandman. They're talking about the Neil Gaiman Sandman here. One from 89 to 96 is the run. One of the most critically acclaimed comic book series of all times. The series centers around Morpheus, the Lord of Dreams, and his journey through the imaginative and often darkly beautiful world. Gaiman's writing is rich and with mythological literacy and historical reference, and the series is known for its high level of artistry. And then, of course, it's still impactful today. When you're talking about Sandman, you're talking about Neil Gaiman, and unfortunately, there's these stories and these things that have happened, and whatever side you fall on, I've been warning you, telling you all of these years to stop worshiping these people and just appreciate that the artwork they provide and the creativity, the things that you enjoy, and stop pretending like they're not flawed human beings that make mistakes, and sometimes big mistakes. All right, let's see. What's next here? Stray Bullets. Oh, classic. Yeah, Stray Bullets, 1995. They say to present, and I don't know that that's strictly true. Yeah, I don't know that that's exactly true or not. There's some of these that have stopped and restarted over the years, as comic books often do, and this one's not on my radar. Stray Bullets, created by David Latham. It's a gritty and intense crime comic that explores the consequences of violence in a fractured world. Set in a dark urban environment, the series follows various characters as they navigate crime, corruption, and personal demons. Latham's raw, unflinching storytelling and detailed artwork created a deeply immersive experience. You know what? All of these books have in common is that they're great stories and great art. And this is so much more important, and it really makes the point that I try to make as often as I can when it comes to the comic books, and that's that you should be enjoying them for the art, for the storytelling, that this collecting and hoarding and things. These things should be taking a backseat. You should be reading. If you're not reading comic books, you're not doing comic books a big favor necessarily. You're not doing creators a big favor by just collecting and buying the works. You're helping the corporations who print the stuff and put the stuff out, but you're not necessarily helping the creators. You're not going into it thinking, oh, here's this creator, here's the stories that he's done before, here's a new one, I should buy that one because I want to read it. And I think that there's a potential that it's going to be good, as opposed to hey, maybe this guy was popular with his last story, maybe I'll get lucky and be able to make some money on the books in this story. That's fine. That works out great for those corporations. That works out fine for Warner Brothers and for Marvel to have their thing and to make their money printing all the extra covers and all that stuff that I don't necessarily have a problem with. It's a different conversation. So it's all great for them, for you to buy more copies and chase collectability and buy the 1 in 25s or whatever it is. But it's not necessarily helping the artist and the creators, the writers, the people that are making these things, because what they need is fans that collect their stuff and read their stuff because they're expecting it to be good, not because they're hoping that it's going to generate some wealth for yourself, and that it'll generate some wealth for you down the road. It's just, it's fine. It's part of the industry. I'm not saying that there's anything particularly wrong with it. I'm just telling you that you're not necessarily doing these creators, you're not doing the comic book world a favor by just collecting comic books on the off chance that you would, as an investment. You should be reading them. You should be reading them. You should be loving them for what they are, and accepting again that the creators are flawed people, that you can't expect them to be perfect, and you can't expect them to not make mistakes. The Question, this is a great character that's still around today and has gone through any number of different changes over the years, and depending on what storyline even today that you're reading, it could be a different character altogether, but still just the general character of the question themselves are really great. Created by Denny O'Neil and Dennis Cohen, a couple of just really fantastic creators that now doing a lot of their own creative work. I believe both of them are black creators, and they're off doing their thing within the black creator community. And there was something I read that the two of them were on here just recently, and it's not coming to me off the top of my head, but I did a review on it. I'd have to go back and look and see what the review was. I just remember it was good, and it was great to see that. I always love it. Just like I was talking about in the last hour, it does my heart good to see a black man carrying a firearm, a normal, just everyday person, not a gangster, not a thug, whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just a normal black man, and it does my heart well also to see these creators of different color and different ethnicity and different backgrounds and different tastes to be creators and to be successful and to have these great books and these great stories out there doing well within the marketplace for any number of reasons. It's always great to see someone exceed. It's always great to see an underdog succeed. It's always great to see someone succeed when other people are specifically telling you that you can't. When we have in our society right now, comic gate and people who bash on games and the gaming community and the comic book community and the board game community and the Magic the Gathering community, all these different communities as being not inclusive, and then they're forced to play this little game. I talked a little bit about it in the last hour with this sort of the games, with video games in particular, falling to an agenda. Well, it's happened in comic books as well. And there's this lie that comic books are not inclusive and that they haven't been. And this is a disconnect between what constitutes comic books and what constitutes the corporate churning of comic book material and superheroes. There's a huge disconnect between what the corporate world is doing with comic books and how they're treating characters and properties and different people and getting different people to come in and be invited into the creation process, not just the reading and collecting process of it all, when forever, since time out of mind, the entire time that there have been such a thing as comic books and pulp magazines and these types of materials, that they were always underground, that they were always subversive, that they were always done by marginalized people, these or people who feel marginalized, be it for whatever reason, race or sexual proclivity or whatever it is. There's always been a space for you. If you couldn't find it, you weren't looking for it. There's always been a space for you in comic books, and The Question and Denny O'Neil and Dennis Cohen. These are the kind of people. These are the kind of stories. These are the kind of creations that prove exactly what I'm saying in terms of that openness of the comic book industry that has always existed. I guess this is our last one, Elektra Assassin. This was a 8-part miniseries by Frank Miller, and of course that follows along right in the period after Frank Miller has already brought life back to the Daredevil character. Again, another one of these characters in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, in that time range where these amazing creators got a hold of them and redefined who these characters were. Of course, that's a little bit different with Frank Miller and Elektra in particular, and Bill Sienkiewicz on the art there. Just amazing at the time, and just more of the story and everything that Frank had already created within the Daredevil story. And so it really just great. One of the classic, and you know what's great about all of these books that it's been talking about here, They're all reasonable. These are all books that, depending on where you're shopping, if you're shopping in Amazing Fantasies, if you're shopping in my store, most of those books, almost every single one of the books in all of those series can be found for a couple bucks or less, depending on what time you're shopping around. There's a few of them. There are key ones, first issues and things like that, and the price may be a little bit more, but every single one of these books that they've talked about there are books that are reasonable, that you can get into them without having a lot of a lot of expense or investment in time, even trying to find them. They're not hard to find, and they shouldn't cost you a lot of money, and they're just amazing, enjoyable reads. I'm glad that actually worked out like that, because I didn't know that's what the article was about. It was just another one of those things where I thought, oh, well, this one's going to be fun. We'll get a chance to look at it together, and I'm glad that we did. TowardAnarchy.com, head back on up there. There's some more links and things there to share with you, and anything that I've talked about, most of the stuff that I've talked about, there's more in there behind those links. I'm not going to the links today necessarily. I did that one very specifically. There was one, I wonder if I could spot it just off the top of my head, because I didn't note it, but it was just interesting. Let's see. Well, I'll read what's in there for you, and maybe I'll remember it as I'm reading it for you. So if you've listened to me over the years, you've heard me talk about stagflation, and I got into this a little bit just into the last hour, and the question of how long ultimately that we can drag this out, that they can drag this out, that this manipulation of the money and the markets and everything that we deal with, how long can they drag this out? That's been the conversation for so long, and these links are up there. Stagflation is really, it's about to hit home, or right in the worst case scenario for the U.S. economy, and that's, a quote from the money and markets guys. They're talking about how bad it is, but they are calling it, and I'm just pulling this one up just because, there it is, right there in the headline, Stagflation-Lite, the worst case scenario for the U.S. economy looks like it's getting more likely. It's Orwellian, like I said it was, but it does, it tells you a lot. It tells you a lot just reading that. It tells you exactly what you can look forward to going into that conversation. It tells you where they're at on this argument. Oh, it's bad, but it's not that bad. Don't worry. It'll be okay, even though, again, spike on a downward trend. I don't know how many times we have to point that out. And with that worst case scenario, that stagflation-lite building up on us, we're as close now as it's ever been, and it's things like mobility that come right along with it. And when you're talking about economics and mobility, that's people moving from one place to another, following jobs, following economic opportunities. And when you're in a state of stagflation, when your economy is stumbling and fumbling and crumbling, as ours is, the mobility of the economy shrinks. It goes down, and it goes down proportionately. I don't know if there's probably not any exact proportional method of measure, but you're going to see one come hand in hand with the other because they feed each other, and that's the problem with something like stagflation. That's why it is what it is. It's why you have the two words that are joined together, because it is this thing that feeds on itself. One feeds into the other. The stagnant growth continues to drive the value of the dollar down, because with the value of the dollar down, with the stagnant growth, with the jobs not being filled, you have government making manipulations, and they're talking about another $1,200 stimulus check at this point for some people. I guess the IRS has announced this. I don't know. I didn't go in and look at the details, and they're always trying to sell you on these things. But what are we doing at this point? What is it that we're needing this for? I thought the economy was was doing well. I thought that these jobs are recovering with the, that tariffs are bringing in all this extra money. That's what the president seems to claim. So he's either very ignorant or he's a liar, and he's expecting you to be ignorant of economics. It's one of the two, or both, I guess. Maybe he's a liar and he expects you to be ignorant. I guess that absolutely could be true, and I suppose they both are true. I doubt very seriously that the other option, that he doesn't know, is actually a thing. Tariffs damage the economy. That's what it is. And it's all stacking up together. It really is. It's all adding up, and it just feeds on itself. It's cyclical until you break the cycle, until you get government out of it and let the things crash or stabilize, do what they're going to do, let the bubbles pop, let them do what they would do naturally. And yes, there are going to be parts, places, people within the economy that are going to hurt more than others, but that's better than all of us hurting just because we think we can manipulate reality. And that's what the government tries to do when it comes to economics. It tries to manipulate something. It tries to manipulate reality. That's what I said. That's what I meant. They try to manipulate reality, and it doesn't pay off real well. It doesn't work out real well for them. You see what's happened. You see what's happened? It's destroyed our economy. Every little bit of meddling has destroyed the value of our money, our currency anyway. And nothing. It's not getting better. They're not changing anything. The government is spending more and more money, even though it's bringing in these record revenues. And it's 4D chess. Here we go again, because if he does this and moves this and strategically places this, that, and the other thing over here, magically somehow taxation is no longer theft, and we aren't the ones getting robbed. Somebody else is getting robbed on our behalf. That's the game that they're playing, but there's no actual path to that. It's just the claim that they can go around bullying people and raise more money ultimately for the federal government. And if the federal government can raise more money through taxes, they don't care who they get it through. They just turn right back around and offer you, well, a stimulus check. Oh no, sorry, you had to pay more for all the goods and services across the board. Here's a little stipend, here's just a little taste of some of that millions and billions of dollars that have been generated in just the last 6 months or so. And here's your little taste. You're in on it now. You got your cut, so we're all criminals together in this thing. I guess that's the prevailing attitude through it all. But it's never worked. It's never worked. It's never once actually produced real wealth. It's just socialism. It's just redistribution of wealth. There is no creation of wealth, and it's the destruction of wealth, because you're taking out. Look, we have millions and millions. It's got to be something of 17 million or something like that. There's a number that I've heard before, somewhere around 20 million, something like that. It's a large number, and it's an ever-changing number all the time for any number of reasons, aging as well as just economic activity. And it's a number of men who don't have a job and who are not looking for a job. These are 17 to 55-year-old able-bodied men who don't have anything good to do with their time to distract them from all their baser needs or desires, and the pursuit of trying to get those base needs and desires filled. So you are creating a situation where you are displacing some large number of males, and males displaced it's wars, it's gangs, it's assaults, it's abuses, it's it's misdirected energy that can't possibly be redirected given the continued pursuit of things as they are within the economy, through the government, through the manipulations of this. If the system doesn't change, that doesn't change. It actually gets worse. More and more aimless, goalless men will find themselves out there in the economy without an economy of their own. And what is the solution to that? More government intervention into the economy, more government intervention into society by making things illegal, by creating crimes, by finding reasons to lock these men up for taking advantage of existing reasons, and some of them may be true reasons, maybe real reasons why somebody has hurt somebody, and then to take advantage of that, as it were, and to still keep these men down. There's nothing about redistribution of wealth or socialism or jailing these men that makes it any better. It's perpetuating it. If you can't see it within our black community and decades of abuse through the system of people of minorities, of minority races, and how it's destroyed them to compound on itself, to feed into itself, to keep that cycle going and growing the cycle and making it worse and worse. You think that number is bad? Millions and millions of men without jobs. Take that percentage and apply it to the black community, and you have a community of almost unemployable and almost an entirely unemployable half of a race of people, the gender half of a race of people, and that in and of itself compounds on itself, because the women then are they're still women, but they're angry women. They're angry at the men. They don't need the men. That in itself perpetuates more problems of men not being there for their families, which perpetuates more problems of men not being educated, disciplined, guided, whatever language terms, whatever works for you in that space, that leaves them without direction. It leaves them poor. It leaves them homeless, and it leaves them to fend for themselves and to come up with their own means to provide for themselves. And sometimes, many times, a lot of times, these things turn violent and ultimately unnecessary. It's just unnecessary. TowardAnarchy.com. Let's take a look at a couple of more of these before we run out of time, because time is closing on us. It does that. It's just some reminders about some of the scum that are sworn to serve and protect you. We don't need your service. I don't need your protection. I didn't ask for it. It'd be really great if y'all would just go the hell away and stay away, but that's not going to happen. And so they're out there, they're serving us, they're protecting us, and there's such great people like the one in LA who kidnapped a man and held him for ransom. That one's great. Real POS, that guy. But so is the next guy, already under investigation when he shot a Marine. What was the other? There was one more, and I couldn't find it again when I went to go dig it up. It was just another example of another cop completely corrupted. It was, I believe it was a Texas thing, Texas or Arkansas. It was definitely in the South, and it was about like handshake deals on the side of the road kind of thing. It was about extortion and ultimately pulling over truck drivers and extorting money out of them, not to give them tickets, not to write them up on their log books and things like that. And it was, I couldn't find the link again though, and I was already off onto other stuff, and I just let it go. I just said, that's it'll come up again. You can count on it. But yeah, another one of these guys who serves and protects you by violating you and robbing you and claiming that that's protecting you when he does it. It's really disgusting. There was one other thing though, that these are links. You can go see them. They're up there. You can go find out more about all this. And just in case you were confused and you believe that there was any chance at justice, you're obviously not getting it on the street there. You're being robbed by them. You're either being robbed legally by them or illegally by them, and maybe both at the same time, depending on your stance and your understanding of the law and what's actually lawful as opposed to what's legal. And maybe there would be some chance that the court system, the judges, those guys would maybe stand up for liberty and freedom and defend people's rights, but that isn't happening because they're just authoritarian scum who claim that some people have a right to something that others don't. And of course, I'm talking about the Second Amendment again. There was this ruling here the last week or so that was ultimately, it said that the Second Amendment doesn't protect the right to own machine guns, to own what they would call weapons of war, and that's not. It's just not true. Okay, first of all, it's just not true, because machine guns, these weapons of war, these things existed at the time. They were rudimentary, but it wasn't beyond the understanding that it was just musket rifles. That's not the case. So that claim is just sort of really truly bogus. But the fact is that, again, we're talking about people. We're talking about just people who are just other people. They're not special. Their bloodline doesn't make them special. They're being elected to an office that existed long before them doesn't make them special. Their particular brand of authority, whatever political flavor it has, does not make them special. They are just people. None of them have any right whatsoever except for one that they fabricated and created for themselves, or used and found themselves within a system that was created to help them believe this about themselves, that they have any right to tell you what you can and can't do for your self-defense, for your job, with your money, in any case at all, period, whatever. It's all completely made up. Every single claim that you have to acquiesce to their authority, that you have to kowtow to them, that they are the authority, is bogus. It's just their claim, and the only claim that they have to it is the claim that somebody else made that claim in the past before them, hundreds of years ago in some cases. And do you think that seriously applies in the real world? In the real world, not this fake, made-up plastic thing called society, guided by the benevolent hand of government and authoritarians. Not that fake-ass BS that exists out there. I'm talking about the real world, where the real world is that we all have an individual right of self-defense. We all have the right to do what we want to do with our health, our wealth, our being, every single aspect of our reality, so long as, and even when we do, violate other people, as long as we are accepting the consequences for those things. Nobody anywhere ever has a right to tell you that you can or can't do something. I don't care what their authority claim is, what their title is. None of it matters. And that's just about enough of that. And I haven't even begun to talk about military troops occupying the streets in Washington, D.C. The fact that 3 states have committed troops to it. Hundreds of the National Guard troops are now patrolling the streets of D.C. They're conducting traffic stops. And they're using they're not protecting the flow of traffic. They've not used even the basic excuse that you get from the states when they set up checkpoints around, and that's that they're protecting the safety and that they're of the people, and that they're making sure that vehicles are safe and that people aren't drunk driving and what have you. This is what they do with their excuses that they make when the states do it, and the courts have upheld that they have some limited right to do that. But that's not what's happening here. These guys are literally sort of doing the ID checkpoints. It's something like what you would experience in, it's ridiculous to say it because everybody knows that at this point when you start calling people Nazis that invalidates the argument, but they are doing very Nazi-like things. They're very much, where are your papers? They show me your papers. You don't have a right to be here. You have no right to be here at this time, in this place, in this space, and it's because we say so. It's not because you're necessarily a criminal. It's not because there is a threat to society. These immigrants, these people, they don't pose, generally speaking, a threat to society. They're a good thing for society because they are doing something I talked about just a few minutes ago, really, that we don't do, that we're not doing as a stagnating economy, and that's they have mobility. They come and go. They move where the work is. They go where the work is. They do some of the odd, different things that people in America don't know how to do anymore. It blows my mind. It amazes me. I'm just over 50 years old, and I see people younger than me, men younger than me, and not that much younger than me, 15 years or so at the outset, and they don't have skills. And not only do they not have skills, and they don't want them, and they don't have tools. They just don't even have any tools. They don't have a saw. They don't have a ratchet set, a couple of screwdrivers, a hammer, nothing. Maybe a tool drawer in the kitchen, and that's literally it. Just a couple of screwdrivers, maybe a hammer, and roll of tape or something, and that's it. Whereas when I'm coming up as a young man, one of the first things I wanted as a young man, and I'm talking, preteen to teen years, I wanted tools. I wanted to be able to do things. I wanted to be able to construct things and destruct things, and I did. I pulled things apart. I built things. I figured out how they worked. I made my own things, and I wanted those tools. And I get that there's some argument that some of these people are developing different tools and different tool sets, digital tool sets and things like that, and that's absolutely true. But that's as if that was the only thing that anybody ever had to do. If it was the only thing they ever had to do. You see what I'm saying when there's more than just that job. There's more than just that little bit of work that they're going to be doing throughout their lives. They're going to be dependent on others to do everything else for them. There's obviously a generation of people who have been raised to believe that that's the case, that everybody is supposed to do something for them, that they're entitled to things. But the reality is, when you get down to it, you have to do these things for yourself. You have to be able to take care of yourself, repair things around the home, repair yourself theoretically. How many times I've cut a finger badly, something like that, working on a car or working with something, and you know what? You just rinse off the grease and wrap a Band-Aid on it and get back to work. And these guys are going to be calling an ambulance and running up $4,000 ambulance bills and emergency room bills, and it just for a cut that anybody else would just wrap up and move on about their day. You finish the work, and then you take the thing off, you clean it up, you throw some peroxide, some rubbing alcohol on it, clean that thing up a little bit, throw another Band-Aid back on it, put it on there nice and tight so the skin heals back together. These are a skill I don't see people having today, and it's sad. It's really, it's a weird thing, truly, to be in a situation where somebody is asking for tools or repairs, or they have something that needs to be done, and then they have to ask, outside of like large equipment, tractors and things like that, all of these, tools that you would need to work around the house. Everybody should have them. Everybody should have them, and everybody should have some ability to do some of those things for your own good. And it's something that is just fading away. But that a little bit of a tangent there. But it just back to this idea. I haven't. That's what I was getting at. Is that I haven't even talked about it. I haven't even addressed this situation, much like those people have not addressed the situation that we're coming to. I mentioned the thing earlier about tens of millions, whatever it is. I don't know what the exact number is. I know that there are a lot of young men in America from the age of 17 to 55 that don't have jobs and aren't looking for jobs, and it all falls into the same category. They have no skills. That's part of the reason that they don't have a job, is that they have no ability. That's what started that conversation, what sent me on that tangent, is that mobility. This ability to go from one position, from one job to another, having more than one skill set, or at least the wisdom and the audacity, if nothing else, to try to do something else, to make something for themselves, and it's going to be great. I will get some opportunities this year to talk to some young children. I assume for the next 4 years I will be able to, I will have that opportunity, because the high school here, with my son in it, and my son working with me in the comic book shop and being in art classes and some things like that, as well as the math classes and the science classes and things. I asked my children to expand their knowledge range so they don't get caught in this situation. Geez, both of my girls are starting college this week, and the boy just this last week here has entered into the high school. And but I'll get an opportunity to talk to them as a business owner, as an artist, as a comic book shop owner, as a comic book collector. I'll get opportunities to speak to these children, and that's one of the things that I will talk to them about, is doing more than the one thing. It's great to have a focused mindset and some goals and a direction to go, but you also have to have a backup plan. And the backup plan doesn't have to be like every single base covered, but it should at least be the basics covered, that you're just prepared to do something else with yourself when your main thing, whatever it is, falls through, doesn't work out, works for as long as it can, doesn't work anymore. That is the way of things. That's what we've lost. We've lost that mobility. I only have a few minutes left here, and I'm so done with talking about these things. But there is a little bit of a silver lining to all these gray clouds that I've mentioned here, and that's that the data is in on armed citizens stopping crime. And we'll look at this really quick, and then maybe I'll talk about drums for a minute, because there's a neat little show. I'll have to go look it up, I guess. I have to look it up real quick. We'll do that while I'm here, because I forgot to jot down the name of it. I just started watching it, and let's see. Can you just search through here? I wanna just look and see the shows, the Hulu originals. That's what it is, and it's a Chris Hemsworth Chris Hemsworth, he's with Thor, right, in the Marvel universe, and he's done at least 3 episodes of this thing so far. I just started watching the very first one and hadn't get very far into it. Didn't need to get too far into it because I know exactly what they're talking about. I know everything that they're talking about in it because I've been talking about it for years here on this show, and it was just neat to see it come up. And if I can catch the name of it here, I will drop the name of it on you. I will definitely find it before we go any further here. I was just hoping that it might show right up on here because it had just popped up. It was one of the things that they were promoting, and so you'd think that here I am right here, right in front of your face, because we were just promoting it everywhere else. Well, I guess maybe they were just promoting it to me. Why? Because I've watched one thing that Marvel has done for. I'm not even a Thor guy. I'm not. I've never been into the Thor character. Avengers, I've talked about that before. That the Marvel universe, the MCU is not. It's not my Marvel universe because I'm not an Avengers fan. I'm not a Spider-Man fan. Not really. I appreciate them for what they are, but they're not the characters. They're not the stories that I want to hear, that I want to watch, that I want to join in, try to get my entertainment out of. Let's see if I can find what this stupid thing is real quick, because it's bothering me that it's just not popping up there. That's it. Okay, I make sure I can spell the guy's name properly. Hemsworth, and it's drums. Let's see. He's playing the drums. It was really neat because he shows up at ultimately the end is here. It is. Toughest challenges he faced with Limitless. That's what the show is called. So Chris Hemsworth, he's looking at different health aspects. He wants to do what I've talked about, exercise the brain and the body as he's getting older, so that those things don't atrophy, so that they don't become mush. And that's what happens to a lot of people, and they catch a lot of disease and a lot of ill health from a bad place in their mind, a bad place in their body, just sitting all the time, not being active, not doing things, and their brain not being active as well. And so he wants to avoid all this going into his older age. He's only 42 years old. So he's 10 years younger than I am. So he's just starting on those changes, those things that you start to notice. The vision starts to get a little bit different, and maybe a little hair goes away, those things. Of course, he's rich and in Hollywood, so he has doctors to fix all of those things for him, but those are all cosmetic. The serious things are the real physical health, the real mental health. And this first episode that I've seen, there may be other episodes of it. I know there's at least 3 in this season. There may be other entire seasons of it, for all I know. But he wants to learn something new, and so he goes around and talks to doctors and people, and he says, well, what's the best way to learn something new? What's one of the best ways to engage the mind and engage the body? And they tell him, learn to play an instrument, learn something new, learn to play an instrument, and frankly, learn to play the drums, because it's physical and mental. You get both of those aspects. And they talk about how it strengthens the connections between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of the brain, and how it just makes you smarter, and it gets your brain more in tune with your body as well. And it was just a neat thing to see. But that was that. So let's go back to the historic drop in violent crime, supposedly. So their claim is, and this article is up there, towardanarchy.com, episode 2527. You can click on this link. You can find this for yourself. Their claim is an FBI reports a sharp decline in violent crime, specifically murder, that can be directly linked to increase in lawful gun ownership and specifically citizens taking their safety into their own hands. So historic drop in violent crime. 2024 FBI reported an unprecedented drop in national murder rates with nearly 15% decline, a record-breaking year for crime reduction. And it's about guns, apparently. The largest one-year decrease in U.S. history, making a shift in the nation's crime trends. The U.S. murder rate is now lower than pre-pandemic levels, and experts are hopeful that 2025 may witness an all-time low. I have to say, as someone who lives in one of those cities that crosses that border from violent to protected, because you have gun rights here, but there are a lot of gang members and a lot of poor people and just a lot of dumb people that make bad decisions here in this area. The murder rate this low is pretty yeah, that was neat. I can't believe I just said that. That was wild. The murder rate this year is low. That was just what? That was a whole brain flip-flop thing going on right there, wasn't it? They highlighted the significant impact of concealed carry laws and the expansion of Second Amendment rights. Quote from this Giannis guy. And you go read the thing. You can find out who he is if you care. He wrote something, pointed out that his guns and gadgets video, it's a video that he's some reporter or something. His quote was, "More good guys and gals with guns prevent crimes," referencing the increased number of law-abiding citizens carrying firearms for self-defense. I was just saying how happy it makes me. Black man, white man, any man, it doesn't matter. It's a beautiful thing to see people being responsible for their own self-defense. Violent crime fell by 4.5%, with property crimes decreasing by 8.1%. Murder rates saw the steepest decline, dropping by 15%. That is just amazing, and it's all because some of you are no longer being cowards and you're taking your responsibility seriously. That's fantastic. We gotta go. I gotta get out of here. We'll see you next week. Until then, take care.
The single biggest intellectual error during my political lifetime has been to confuse freedom with equality. In fact, equality, being an unnatural condition which can only be enforced by the state, is usually the enemy of liberty.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network.